Welcome to Mentally Healthy. We're so glad you're here. We are very proud to welcome and introduce Innovative Products as the sponsor for today's video and content. IPP supports the ongoing mission of Mentally Healthy and our affiliations. As Innovative Products' tagline outlines, Mentally Healthy honors discovering the possibilities together.
Let's take a moment to relax and breathe. Today, we're going to learn and explore 5 causes and risk factors of schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is an illness of the brain that causes certain characteristic symptoms, abnormal experiences, and behaviors. For different people, schizophrenia can involve different clusters of symptoms. It is possible that slightly different disease processes are involved in these different clusters. However, many researchers believe that schizophrenia is a single disease which can have different effects depending on which brain regions are most affected. In the latest edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, or what is commonly referred to as the DSM, the subtypes of schizophrenia were removed. Researchers do not yet know exactly what causes some people to develop schizophrenia. There is a very strong genetic component to schizophrenia. However, genes alone do not completely explain the illness. Most scientists believe that genes don't cause schizophrenia directly, but do make a person vulnerable to developing the disorder. Scientists are studying many possible factors that might cause a person with a genetic predisposition to develop schizophrenia. Let's explore this complex topic. Join us as we explore 5 causes and risk factors of schizophrenia. If you're ready, let's get started. Number 1. Family history and genetics. The evidence of a genetic predisposition to schizophrenia is overwhelming. The frequency of schizophrenia in the general population is slightly less than 1%. Being related to someone with schizophrenia, though, greatly increases your risk of developing schizophrenia. Family connections. Just as with other medical and mental health conditions, genetic predisposition plays a role in whether someone will develop symptoms of schizophrenia. The numbers to support this are strong. For example, some studies have found if your brother or sister or one parent has the illness, your chance of having schizophrenia is around 10%. If one parent has the condition, it raises your chances of developing schizophrenia by about 13%. If your identical twin has the illness, you have a roughly 50% chance of developing schizophrenia. If both of your parents have schizophrenia, you have a 40% likelihood of developing the illness. We know these family risks are due to genetics rather than family environment, as these rates are the same whether a person is raised in the birth family or not. The children of people with schizophrenia are more frequently given up for adoption because their parents are too ill to care for them. However, genes alone don't cause schizophrenia. If they did, then identical twins, who share virtually the same genetic code, would have closer to a 100% likelihood of sharing the illness, rather than 50%. Number 2. Environment. As with many health conditions, certain environmental factors may contribute to the development of schizophrenia. Viral infections. Exposure to viruses are found to be a contributing factor in the development of schizophrenia. There are a variety of traits of viruses that might make this possible. For example, viruses can attack certain brain regions and leave others intact. Alter certain processes within a brain cell without killing the cell. Infect someone and then lay dormant for many years before causing illness. Cause minor physical abnormalities, birth complications, and altered fingerprint patterns sometimes found in people with schizophrenia. Affect neurotransmitters. It is also important to note that some antipsychotic agents are also antiviral agents, which can also support the idea that viral infections can play a role in the development of schizophrenic symptoms, particularly psychotic symptoms. Herpes viruses. People who have recently developed schizophrenia very often have antibodies to 2 herpes viruses in their blood, HSV, herpes simplex virus, and CMV, cytomegalovirus. Studies suggest that when certain viruses infect someone with a particular set of genes, that person is more likely to develop schizophrenia. Other infectious influences. People with schizophrenia also are more likely to show antibodies to Toxoplasmosis gondii, a parasite carried by cats that can also infect humans. Although the data is mixed, some studies have suggested being raised around cats slightly raises a person's likelihood of developing schizophrenia, and that the illness is more common in countries and states where many people have cats as pets. Infectious disease theories of schizophrenia are very exciting and promising. It is too early to know if researching these theories will reveal a major cause of schizophrenia, but further study will go a long way toward informing future diagnosis and treatment of the condition. Exposure to toxins. Being exposed to harmful toxins are suggested to play a role in the development of schizophrenia, even as early as during fetal development. Toxins that have been researched to show possible influence include alcohol and lead. Exposure to lead during fetal development has been shown to significantly influence the likelihood of the development of schizophrenia and psychosis. Lead can be found in things such as gasoline, paint, tap water, children's toys. Although there are measures that have been taken in more recent years to remove lead from the things we come in contact with every day, it is important to be aware that lead can still be in our environment. If a home was painted with lead paint before 1978, it can still release this toxin. Number 3. Societal factors. Because the causes of schizophrenia have been so difficult to define, much research has been devoted to investigating societal issues that could potentially contribute to the onset of the disorder in some people. Living in a populated area. It has been suggested that living in a densely populated area can be a risk factor in the development of schizophrenia. Research has shown that people who grew up in metropolitan areas were more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia than those who lived in the country or rural areas. Prenatal exposure to hunger. The children of women experiencing famine during the first 3 months of their pregnancy have been shown to be more likely to develop schizophrenia. Family environment. Being raised in a family with schizophrenia greatly increases the stress and likelihood of abuse and trauma, and children from these homes are more likely to develop the illness themselves. However, the genetic contribution, rather than the psychological stress, explains most of the rate of schizophrenia in children from these families. It is certainly possible to look in the history of many people with schizophrenia and find past trauma, but many more people with schizophrenia came from loving, supporting homes. One of the many tragedies of schizophrenia is that well-meaning people often assign blame to parents already heartbroken by the illness of their beloved child. It is important to realize that these risk factors do not, in themselves, indicate a cause of schizophrenia. Instead, scientists are looking for underlying differences among these groups of people that can explain why they experience different levels of risk. Number 4. Brain and body risk factors. Developmental theories of schizophrenia suggest that something goes wrong when the brain is developing. Brain development, from the earliest stage of fetal development, the early years of life and through adolescence, is an extremely complicated process. Millions of neurons are formed, migrate to different regions of the forming brain, and specialize to perform different functions. The something that goes wrong might be a viral infection, a hormonal imbalance, an error in genetic encoding, a nutritional stress, or something else. The common element in all developmental theories is that the causal event occurs during the brain's development. Even though these potential causes may be rooted in very early development, symptoms of schizophrenia typically emerge in late adolescence or early adulthood. Early disruptions. Developmental theories suggest an early disruption causes the brain structure to be disorganized. The start of puberty brings a number of neurological events, including the programmed death of many brain cells, and at that time the abnormalities become critical. Developmental theories suggest there are a number of risk factors for schizophrenia related to critical periods in fetal development, such as schizophrenia is more common in winter and spring births. Children whose mothers experience famine during the first trimester are more likely to develop schizophrenia. Pregnancy and birth complications increase the risk of developing schizophrenia. However, there is not yet enough evidence that the brains of adults with schizophrenia are disorganized in the ways that developmental theories predict. Also, these theories address the when of schizophrenia's origin, but not the cause itself. Neurochemicals. Schizophrenia clearly involves irregularities in the chemicals of the brain, neurochemicals, that allow brain cells to communicate with each other. We know this because influencing certain neurotransmitters with drugs, like amphetamine or PCP, can cause schizophrenia-like symptoms. Also, antipsychotic medications that block the action of the neurotransmitter dopamine can effectively reduce symptoms. In fact, dopamine imbalance was once thought to be a cause of schizophrenia. However, some newer agents, second-generation antipsychotics, such as aripiprazole, Abilify, work without blocking dopamine. There are also drugs being developed that may not target dopamine receptor antagonism. Current research indicates that abnormalities in the neurotransmitters GABA and glutamate are involved in the cause of schizophrenia. The difficulty of neurochemical theories is that most brain processes can affect neurotransmitter levels, and neurotransmitters, of which there are at least 100, all interact with one another. When we say that one particular neurotransmitter or another is causing schizophrenia, we are basing that claim on a single frame of a very long and complicated motion picture, without being able to see the frames that led up to the change we're observing. The medical treatment of schizophrenia today relies almost entirely upon regulating levels of neurotransmitters, and so research in this area is vital to developing more effective treatments. Number 5. Lifestyle factors. While certain lifestyle factors may seem to be associated with schizophrenia, the connections are more correlational than causal. Stress. Psychological stress has physiological effects and is implicated in causing or contributing to psychiatric disorders, including post-traumatic stress disorder. Psychological stress also aggravates disorders like high blood pressure and heart disease. Certain types of psychological stress, namely traumas in the aftermath of war, natural disaster, or concentration camp imprisonment, have not been shown to cause schizophrenia. This statement doesn't make sense to many people familiar with schizophrenia. How can it be true? For one thing, schizophrenia does not become more common after these types of traumas. But some research does show an increased risk of developing schizophrenia for individuals who experience traumatic stress disorders, especially if triggering incidents occurred early on in life, and/or repeatedly as in cases of sexual abuse. Stress also plays a significant role in the control of the illness. People with schizophrenia become very sensitive to stress and change. Psychological stress alone can be enough to trigger an episode. Developing and maintaining a routine is one of the most important aspects of avoiding relapse. This concludes our video on the 5 causes and risk factors of schizophrenia. Remember these potential schizophrenia risk factors: genetics, family history, viral infections, lead exposure, neurochemical irregularities, prenatal exposure to hunger, dense living environment. People's lives are often filled with loss during the time leading up to a first psychotic episode. However, those losses, like relationships, jobs, school, accidents, are often the result of early-onset symptoms including suspicion, memory disturbance, withdrawal, and loss of motivation. Essentially, previously undiagnosed schizophrenia can be the cause of many life-changing events, and not the other way around. Please share with us your experiences in this area. If you or someone you know are experiencing symptoms of schizophrenia as outlined here, please know there is help. Finding a therapist who truly specializes in the treatment of schizophrenia and understands how to treat it effectively is an important next step. Your friends here at Mentally Healthy support the American Psychological Association for finding a good therapist and ensuring you work with a qualified professional who has background and expertise that will benefit you and your specific needs. We are not affiliated with that organization and receive no special compensation for recommending them. We just recognize the importance of finding qualified professionals to help us when help is needed. Another great resource is also available for those that can take advantage of it. For all our viewers that reside in the United States, a hotline is available to act as an immediate response lifeline center for all suicide and crisis events. Just call or text the number 988, local rates may apply, to immediately be placed in touch with someone you can talk to. If you are a U.S. veteran or military service member, you may text the U.S. Veterans Crisis Line directly at 838-255. Both of these resources will also be placed in the description area of this video. Use these trusted resources as needed.
Well, that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us at Mentally Healthy. If you've enjoyed our video, please like it, and consider subscribing to our channel, as we have lots of great new content in store for you. Subscribing, liking, and clicking the notification bell keeps you connected to us, and truly helps our channel grow. Here's a few other great videos from our channel you can visit right now. Until next time, stay mentally healthy.